It's official.
So, you've seen the title of this video. You know what we're all here for, and I think I'm ready to say it. After extensive thought and research, I finally acknowledge that I was wrong about NetherRealm's Shao Kahn. That's right. Having looked back at these games with a more analytical eye, I can safely say that one of the most significant talking points I used to champion was made in error. I've been spreading a piece of misinformation which I am not proud of myself for having done, and I'm making this video today to correct my mistake. So in the spirit of openness and honesty, I would like to say what I just said again. Give it time to sink in and really cement itself in your brains. I was wrong about NetherRealm Studios' Shao Kahn. Now, I'm sure you all would like me to elaborate. What do I mean specifically? Well, a common point of contention I used to have regarding NetherRealm's Shao Kahn is that his presence and quality as a villain and threat didn't begin its decline until the release of NetherRealm's Mortal Kombat reboot, Mortal Kombat 9 or 2011. This was a common talking point I took on after watching the Fourth Snake's MK 2011 critique, and have based a significant portion of my channel around this idea. To briefly summarize it, my thought was that Midway, being the creators of the character, could do no wrong in his portrayal. They created the character, and gave him a really strong opening, and kept him consistent, as even when he was at his lowest, he was still used as a benchmark to indicate the threat level of the new antagonists, as being able to kill him was a feat that previously only Liu Kang was able to achieve, who was also killed by this new threat. Thus, even in death, Shao Kahn's integrity was preserved. Then the later Deception retcon for the GameCube port of the game created the additional lore that further added to his characterization as an intelligent and cunning strategist. By deceiving the Deadly Alliance and securing allies for his return to power in Outworld, he proved that he was just as, if not more dangerous than even the combined sorcerers were able to manage. Thus, he's firmly back in his seat of power in Armageddon, and has no problem boldly sitting on the throne even right in front of his former master, whom he was previously much weaker than, hence having to resort to poisoning in order to defeat him. After that, we got his MK vs. DC depiction, which while he features very little in, he's directly compared to Darkseid, one of the DC Universe's biggest antagonists ever. After that, the NetherRealm era begins, and despite having a very strong opening wherein Shao Kahn winds up being the winner of the Battle of Armageddon, obtaining the power of Blaze and wiping out all of his enemies, his showings beyond this point are less than ideal. He's shown to be extremely short-tempered and whiny, completely short-sighted and moronic as he calmly explains the details of his conquest of Edenia to Kitana, whom at this point has no reason to believe her father is anything less than on her side, and a lousy cheat who's massively insecure and lacks any sort of confidence in his own strength, and has to skirt his own rules just to get even the smallest victories, which even then he doesn't take full advantage of because Liu Kang can just run hands right after with no repercussions, despite Shao Kahn being the tournament's host and the one making all of the rules for it. Then everything after this game is just a complete train wreck with infantile level understanding of the character's most surface level traits, jacked up to 11 until he's completely flanderized, and then made entirely unrecognizable by the most recent game where most people agree he shouldn't even be considered the same character anymore. Literally the only thing having in common with previous incarnations is his first fucking name. So with all that explained, how exactly has my opinion changed? When I say I was wrong, what do I mean? Have I come around to die-hard fans who think all interpretations are good ones? Or that Kahn was never a good villain to begin with and got the treatment he deserved in later games? Fuck no. You really thought I was gonna buckle down and say that this isn't absolute trash, you normies? NetherRealm still has the gold medal for trashing this classic character, and that will never change! Where my opinion has changed is where the deterioration of his character began. See, Shao Kahn had a very strong opening, to the point that he's often considered the OG villain, despite Shang Tsung being the original villain in the first Mortal Kombat. Kahn was implemented into the canon so well that he's retroactively considered to be the original villain. But after Mortal Kombat 3, they had to move on to a new antagonist, which led to the most controversial entry in this series to date, Mortal Kombat 4, and the introduction of Shinnok, a fallen elder god who would end up becoming the new antagonist following Kahn's defeat, and most agree this wasn't a very strong opening for the character. He had some good moments in some of the endings that show how ruthless he was, but what ended up being canon was Quan Chi stealing his amulet and letting him get defeated by Liu Kang. Where this begins to affect Kahn is that another game was released that ties into the lore of Mortal Kombat 4, MK Mythology's Sub-Zero. The instruction booklet carries with it a ton of lore, and honestly, it's sort of a lore master's wet dream. extreme, but for Shao Kahn fans like myself, it's where the deterioration begins. Within its pages details how for MK3's plot, originally a plan enacted by Shao Kahn to have his dead wife resurrected in Earthrealm, thus granting him legal right to enter that realm and get her back, was now a deal struck by Shang Tsung and Quan Chi with no mention of Kahn whatsoever. This essentially makes Kahn look less competent as an antagonist by not actually having a backup plan after the Outworld tournament, which was Shang Tsung's idea. In addition, certain characters, such as Melina, who died in MK2 and were resurrected by Kahn for the invasion in 3, are now retconned to have been resurrected by Shinnok and given to him as a gift for said invasion. But secretly, she was being used as a spy for the fallen Elder God. Again, making Kahn look more foolish for not suspecting anything. These changes are what I like to call the Shinnok retcons, taking feats of cunning and magic away from Kahn just to make him look better by comparison. Though he has consistently failed to live up to the hype something like that carries. He's never been able to measure up to Kahn as a villain and consistently gets beaten in the games he's introduced in as the antagonist. Kahn got 2 games, Shinnok got 1. Kahn got 3 games condensed down into 1, Shinnok still only gets 1. Kahn gets beat by the most cracked Earthrealm warrior of all time and an Elder God-infused Raiden. Shinnok gets beat by the cages. Despite how hard they've clearly tried, Shinnok has never been on Shao Kahn's level as an antagonist and is routinely put in his place, or has to be carried by his servant. It's unfortunate because the fact that they try so hard to put him above Kahn on the threat tier makes him, by extension, look so much worse despite how great he was in the original games. He managed to get some of his repertoire back in Deception, but then Armageddon came out and gave half the cast these weird bad ends for the Outworld Conqueror, where he ends up enslaved in one way or another, and then his own ending where he just goes mad. Add to that MK vs DC where he's on his knees while Quan Chi paces around like the snobby little shit he is, talking about how disappointed Shinnok will be like that matters at all. And it just goes to show that not even Midway knew what to do with him after a while, and it feels like they were just trying to create a better villain so they could get rid of him despite failing at every single opportunity. NetherRealm just ended up making the problem so much worse with their absolute failure at writing for his character. Nobody knows what to do with Shao Kahn anymore, and it makes me wonder if he'd have just been better off staying dead after Mortal Kombat 3.
Outstanding.